Rooshi principle 1. Your treatment or behavior with an object or a person depends on what attributes, properties, or qualities you give to that object or a person. Let me illustrate. Said atom was believed to be what? Atom. Individual, smallest particle, all right? As long as that is the assumption, nobody will attempt to split it. Does it make sense? Huh? The person, the scientist who wants to split it, what is the first thing he must do?
Believe that can be split.
Right, so that's a conceptual level. He has to change the premise. You get the point? Before you want to change something in behavior about yourself or others, you must change the premise. If you think my memory is not good, I don't remember names, that's a premise. That's an attribute you have given to yourself, Sandeep. So first thing you must do is to change that premise. Right? Are you changing it?
Yeah.
Good. Good. So the point is, and the same thing applies for a whole lot of things in our life. So please be aware, that's the first thing. All right. Now, so what did happen to Gandhiji? He persevered, and here is what happened. And I quote, its greatest benefit has been, that is, the experience taught him something, its greatest benefit has been that it has taught me the economy of words. I have naturally formed the habit of restraining my thoughts, and I can now give myself a certificate that a thoughtless word hardly escaped my tongue or pen. How many of you can give yourself that certificate, or half of it? Now, he says, continues, I do not recollect ever having to regret anything in my speech or writing. I have thus been spared many a mishap and waste of time. End of quote. So that's the first thing. Second one is you must understand people. That's the second requirement for making contact with. First is self-confidence. Secondly is understanding of people. That you must have some insight into people, and having an insight in yourself is an excellent start, because you too are a people. You are also a person. Remember, when you listen to someone or when you start reading a book, you are not always with it, and the same applies to others, which means they are operating at the bottom of the triangle, remember? Odhikari Saab? So you are operating as this level, so lots of thoughts are going through your mind initially when you come, and the same happens to other people. So do something about it here and now. What can you do? Well, that is, you are limited only by your own imagination. What you can do about getting people's attention. Third thing, if you turn the page, be enthusiastic about what you have to say. If you are bored, it will show in your writing as well as in your speech. Next point, fourth, make eye contact. Look at people. So make eye contact and make sure your verbal and non-verbal messages are in agreement. And more on this later. We'll cover that, body language that we spoke of. Fifth, be interested in your audience and convey your positive attitude to them. It's very important. Don't think people are stupid. People are smart. They're too nice to tell you, that you are a lousy guy. But they know. If you are smug, if you are dishonest, they feel it. So don't underestimate your audience ever, any place, regardless of the age or educational background. And lastly, if all fails, attend my course. Now what we're going to do, is do that exercise. Remember? 1, 2, 3. What I would like you to do is use both rooms, this as well as the other one. I'll time you. Find 2 people who are strangers. Move. Come on.
Anyone.
Anyone. 3 people. Number yourself. You remember the instruction. You will start the exercise only when I tell you to. All right, number yourselves. 1, 2, 3. Have you done it? Have you numbered yourselves? Okay. Find a place. Where are you going to sit? This room here. 1, 2, 3. Ready? Number 1 speaks about himself or herself for 2 minutes. Start. 2 minutes. Now what I'd like you to do is number 2 and 3, tell number 1 what they have written about that person and verify agreement and disagreement. I don't want number 1 to argue, no, this is wrong, this is right. That's not the point. The point is what you feel based on what he said. Just listen to that, what the person has to say. And see how far it tallies with what you wrote as number 1. You got about 4 or 5 minutes to do it for each person. Once you finish with 1, you go to the 2 and other 2 give the same thing. Fair enough? So you got about 15 minutes total to finish the process. Number 1 or 2 or 3, when they are being talked to by the other 2, will also share what they have written about themselves with the other people. Okay, wrap it up. Back to your seats, please. All right, back here. Grounded. Good. Now, share with the whole group some of the things that you found worthwhile or you noticed that was surprising or this or that or the other. Anything about this particular exercise. Deepak.
Well, our group found that we judged each other quite well.
Was it surprising?
Well, I wouldn't say it was very surprising, but it was a revelation. Yes, I mean, it may be called surprising,
okay,
but in the sense that we've never had this exercise before, so it didn't surprise or it was a revelation.
Right, okay.
I would put it as a revelation.
Fine.
That people judged you. All of us judged each other quite well.
Interesting. 2 minutes time, lots of people by saying, no matter what you said, people make certain impression, there is a validity to it. That's what I want you to, be aware of. That doesn't matter what you say, so it's no use hiding, saying certain things and avoiding certain things. Because people are going to make their, judgments based on whatever you say. Because when you decide to say something, you are also avoiding saying something else. And as I said, people are smart enough to feel it. All right. What did you feel?
Well, my group consists of myself and 2 students who
Right.
are yet to begin their life. So what I thought about them, I just conveyed to them. And more or less, we found that whatever we said was quite nearer to the truth. I mean, not be quite accurately what we have said.
But it's close enough.
Close.
For 2 minutes time.
Close enough, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Pradeep?
Well, we judged each other very well, and something I found very interesting was that we were all of the similar opinion that one should be more at home, a homely nature. I don't know how, but how we chose each other. And
If you said homely in America, it will mean ugly, just that we are in communication.
When I go to America, I take care not to say.
Right, good. Just to be aware of it. You know how words also change in a culture.
Right.
You know? Okay, good. Asha?
Well, I was happy with our discussions, comments on each other's comments, and I was very happy with the coincidence to find a women's liberated man in the group, because I'm a believer of women's liberation in the Indian sense, not the American sense, and he's a husband who strongly backs up the movement, and we had many common ideas to discuss.
Oh, good. Okay. Shri?
Three of us were of the same sort of opinion about each other.
A little louder, please.
Our opinion about each other almost matched what we are talking about. I mean, in the sense what in those 2 minutes.
Did it
we were
surprise
to-
you or was it a revelation?
Yeah, it did surprise in the sense that how is it that one can gauge oneself in, say, while you're talking. And basically all three of us were of the same nature in the sense that we are not the typical outgoing type of person. So we were able to probably correlate with each other much better.
Arun?
Well, I think in our group, each one perceived each other well, I would say. But the only thing, only thing that surprised me was that I was able to write 2 sentences, those proverb types, for the 2 of them, but they were unable to do so for me.
I see.
So that really surprised me, because I was wondering whether there was any lack of communication on my part, or whether there was something which something that was not right on the other side.
Did you
was
check
the-
that? Did you find out?
They just said that they couldn't write anything.
Okay. Samir?
Yeah, we judge each other well, but what I thought was basically what we were doing was talking about each other. I mean, talking about ourselves, and we were talking the 2 minutes. So we could also basically were making our own observations from what they were saying about themselves. I mean, kind of tallied. I mean, there was honesty in their eyes. So we basically thought, yeah, that's what it is. That's what they're like. So we judged each other well on the point that because we were talking about ourselves, a lot of it tallied. Once.
Achha.
One thing I would like to clarify.
A little louder, please.
Quite a few people who have just made comments have been saying that they have judged each other well. Now, I would like some of them to clarify, because I'm not able to understand this, what exactly they are meaning by that sentence or that phrase. Because this has been repeated by about at least 8 to 10
Okay,
people.
fair question. Arun, you have a comment on that?
And whether this exercise was meant to judge each other well, that also I would like to
No, that's not the purpose of exercise, not to judge each other well.
Right.
All right.
I think it is basically an exercise to have a proper perception of people and discover your own judgment about others and then get a confirmation about them. That was basically the exercise. So when it is judge, it may be a word which may be repeated, but basically the idea is the same, that you will be able to perceive the other person right and get other person's confirmation to that.
So not judgment in the condemning sense of it.
Now I would like to add something to that from our exercise.
Huh.
Both of us judged Mr. Adhikari, but I would say individually our picture was incomplete,
Huh.
right?
Yeah.
Together we would both agree that the points which we have listed
Huh.
forms his picture correctly.
Right.
Now, did we judge ourselves wrongly, him wrongly, or was it correct?
So not judgment in the condemning sense of it.
Now I would like to add something to that from our exercise.
Huh.
Both of us judged Mr. Adhikari, but I would say individually our picture was incomplete,
Huh.
right?
Yeah.
Together we would both agree that the points which we have listed
Huh.
forms his picture correctly.
Right.
Now, did we judge ourselves wrongly, him wrongly, or was it correct?
No, it's like Buddha's elephant, if you recall the Buddha's story.
Right.
You know, it is 8 blind people looking at an elephant.
Right.
You know, and they were all told to describe the elephant. And they all describe in the depending on what part they touched. You know, the guy who touched the elephant's legs is like a pillar. You know.
So this judging is not complete. It's
No.
incomplete.
It's your impression of that person. Part of that is because what he said, part of it is colored by your own upbringing and view about reality. Make sense?
Yes.
What I would like to say is,
Huh.
we had a preset instructions that we have to looking for such acting.
That is correct.
And this and that.
Yeah.
So since having these instructions in mind,
Huh.
and in the 2 minutes what the people were speaking,
Huh.
and since we are quite attentive to what the people said,
Huh.
so we can make a fairly good judgment of the
Right.
other people.
Right.
So if we keep that in mind every time we meet a person or something, we'll be
Huh.
able to judge person better. So that's why the people are saying that we have made a fairly good judgment of each other.
And this is probably the first time in your life that you were heard for 2 minutes so attentively. Is that true? For some of you found that a sort of an unnerving experience. Did anybody feel nervous? Huh? 2 minutes were too long, huh? It's the longest 2 minutes you experienced. My God, what can I say for 2 minutes? If you think about 2 minutes, it's nothing. But suddenly, it becomes a long time. Because it's the only time people are listening, you don't know what they're going to do. You see? That's the interesting part.
I found that I not one experience is that I not planned my talk.
Huh.
2 minutes was not. I was not able to correctly project because it was unplanned. The 2 minutes went out. So certain aspects which should be probably brought out was not.
But you chose not to bring it out.
No, I did not choose because I chose to bring it out, but the 2 minutes was not planned.
Which means the priorities were not those points. Think about it. However you look at it.
No, it was unplanned. I just realized that I'm unplanned.
So it means your priorities, that's what unplanning will mean then. That your priorities are in your head are not clear enough.
Maybe, yes.
Make sense or not? Because if your priorities were clear, those things will come out
If
first.
I were to speak 2 minutes, I should at least think 5 minutes. Then there will be more sense.
Yes, possibly.
Which I did not do.
Because, Pradeep?
See, of all three of us,
Huh.
I was the last person to speak.
Huh.
And now, since I was the last person to speak,
Huh.
and I had heard them talking, I could relate to them and talk over those topics also.
Right.
And I think that also did make a lot of difference.
Sure,
When I
that's why it is an occurring art, as what I was saying in the beginning, that everything that happens alters your statements.
Right.
It is bound to happen, whether you want it to happen or not want it to happen. That's a very good, valid point. Because the very fact that they said something, even if you're talking about cricket, you found they hate sports,
Right.
that's the topic you'll generally avoid.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other comments? Sham?
I also found that the people only show one side of their whole personality. They're not going to show you the other side or tell you anything about it. They only want you to like them. And they no sense.
Very good point.
So you
Okay.
can't really judge a whole person unless
Precisely,
you have
true.
time.
That they said they want you to like you. They want you to like them. No, that's a very interesting observation. I want you to be aware of it. What I want you to do right now is close your eyes for a minute, all of you. Close your eyes. And as your eyes are closed, imagine you got up this morning and not a single person in your household recognized your presence by saying hello to you verbally or non-verbally. Nobody said anything to you verbally or non-verbally. You got ready, you went to work. For a whole day, not a single person in your work environment acknowledged your presence, verbally or non-verbally. The day is over, you're going back home. For the whole day, not a single individual has recognized or acknowledged your existence by talking to you verbally or non-verbally. How do you feel? Get in touch with that feeling, and when you are aware of what it feels like, please open your eyes. Okay, Daru.
Well, I had the experience of the sinking kind of heaviness around the chest, tightness in the throat, and a kind of feeling of being very, very low.
Shri?
I would feel very low if nobody acknowledge my presence over there and disheartened or maybe.
Deepak?
I would feel isolated.
Okay.
At times I would feel indifferent to it. Because if I have confidence, I wouldn't even worry what. I mean, it's a question of which group I enter and where am I working. And at times it's which environment I enter. And if nobody takes notice of me, I wouldn't bother. And I would still feel great. And there are times when I would feel very isolated.
You feel like not going to work
Would you
next.
say I?
Yes.
Would you say I instead of you?
No.
I say I feel like.
Why cannot feel you?
Because this is about you, not about me. It's your feeling, not mine.
See, you'll feel isolated.
Say I feel like. You are talking about your feeling, not mine.
I feel isolated
That's good.
and feel like quitting the job and not to go for and you lose your existence, but for your living.
Right.
If nobody is going to talk, nobody is going to deal with you. What is the purpose of your existence? So you will feel like getting isolated, and you don't like to continue with the work or whatever the job you are doing.
Arun?
Well, I think I'll feel miserable with many question marks.
What? Can you please clarify?
Well, just the fact that nobody is talking right from home, not in the office, is there something wrong with me? That kind of feeling would come.
How about you?
At the house, if anybody said nothing to me, I would not have felt that bad because I understand my family very much.
You understand your family very much. They are like that. Okay.
Possibly the second day if they are not speaking to me, perhaps I would have felt rejected.
I see.
Yeah. And at the office, if I'm totally neglected, I'll feel very insulted, very, very low.
Okay.
And possibly I would want to clarify any mistakes are there with me.
I see. Okay. Is there anybody who felt fantastic? You did?
I felt like a dead person long forgotten.
My question was, did anybody feel great or fantastic? As if being there is fantastic, is what you say?
I don't care a damn.
I see.
I don't care.
Okay. Now, you don't care a damn, still there's a feeling, right?
Well, it is just not possible. I mean,
Okay, I understand.
For them
All
to
right.
keep quiet like that.
Okay.
Second, if they do it,
Huh.
I mean, it's impossible for my office to not recognize when I come. Impossible for them. And second is, if they do it, I won't care either. Next day they will again be online.
I see. Okay, fair enough. The point is, see, you people like to be liked or like to be acknowledged. And that applies, this generalization we can come up with, that this applies to every human being, even if a murderer who also likes to be recognized and accepted by somebody. So if that is the case, then our communication should convey that positive feeling about other people, because that person, no matter who is, does not like to be underestimated or devalued or discounted in any which way. Does it make sense?
I would put it slightly differently.
Okay.
You said everybody likes to be liked.
Huh.
It is not liked. I would put the other word as noticed.
Noticed,
Not
yeah,
liked,
exists.
Not liked.
Okay, like
You know,
drug.
there are
Alright.
criminals who don't like to be liked. They like to be noticed.
They like to be liked by other criminals. See, it's the question of which group you're seeking the acceptance from.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah? You see? We all have our people we choose to be liked by. You know?
I think it's noticed rather
Yeah.
than like. Maybe even another criminal may fear him, he may not
Yeah.
like it.
All right.
But it's, he
So
likes
this
to be noticed.
existence is acknowledged somehow.
Yeah.
Right? So we all want that.
Noticed.
Yeah. So which means any communication pattern should convey to the other people that you don't talk down to them, is what I'm saying. That's a very crucial point that you should be aware of. You know, when talking to people, no matter who that person is. If you think that you are degree and therefore that guy is uneducated, if you talk to like that person, he will feel it. And that will turn him off or tune him out. That's very, very crucial in communication and relating to people. Because as I said early in the morning, the word comes from Latin, means to share. So you share positive feeling, it will have a positive outcome in communication. Okay. Now, by doing this, as Padmanabhan rightly pointed out, that in 2 minutes, if you listen to people carefully, you can find out a whole lot of things and lots of things registered. Which means, as a rule, you should be that aware in all communication situations if you want to be a good communicator. Which means you should be grounded. That's what it amounts to. Just like we spoke of getting the audience grounded, the same thing applies to you. If your car is illegally parked outside, then you will not be grounded. Does it make sense? If you have stomach cramps, you may not be grounded. So when you are there, you have to be grounded to be an effective listener as well, Deepak, since one of the goals that you are here is to be a good listener. So unless you are grounded, you cannot be a good listener, because your attention should be totally into that and not thinking of a question what to ask next. But just be a listener to what is being said to you. And most of the time we are not that grounded. That is one of the major problems. Another part of the problem, if you turn the page, we are on topic 2, is there is a difference in communicating with a group as well as an individual. Are you looking at it? There is a difference between individual and group. Now, there's a very interesting observation made by Dr. Thomas S. Zaz. He's an American psychiatrist, which is a very crucial point he makes. The mystification is the principal semantic tool of the would-be leader. Demystification of the man who wants to be his own master. Rousseau, Marx, Freud, mystified. Emerson, Mill, Adler, demystified. And what is most interesting is, it is perhaps one of the immutable tragedies of the human condition that while the demystifier influences individual, the mystifier moves multitudes. People who use jargon, who give you vocabulary. Like if you go to Freud, and if you study Freud, then you will have a whole lot of new words you have to master. He became a leader. He has a fantastic following around the world. Marx, he gave a system, of a political system, and he wrote Das Kapital and the rest of it. And the certain words, the masses of people started following in his footsteps. Person who clarifies things, he does not have followers in that sense. He might have one individual he trained who became good, but the masses are appealed to by mystification of it. Like a politician, for example, he would use words like democracy, because this word is ambiguous enough. This is the principal tool. Ambiguity is the principal tool of all politicians, which means unclear meaning. If I say democracy, you will interpret it according to your definition of it. So I'm off the hook. So lots of countries in the world that you know of believe in democracy, and they will not meet the requirement or the definition of democracy by some other standards. Or they will say, I'm interested in your good and your welfare. Now whatever that means. So these are, that is left to the people to interpret. So they always appeal to by mystifying the people, the politicians, or they give you jargon. Doctors, another group. Any professional, they all have mastered set of jargons, set of words, which I suggest to you eliminate from your vocabulary. Like if I send a patient to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist then reports to me, he said, Rooshi, that the patient you sent to me, he represses his hostility in the innermost recesses of his psyche, which perennially manifest themselves at which time he physically assaults his wife. And this is the diagnosis. Another psychiatrist looks at the same patient, he says, this guy loses his temper, beats up his wife. You see? Now the first guy is mystified. You see? He will write an article about it, to be read at an august conference of psychiatrists somewhere, about the case that occurred in his office, which keeps on occurring because it never gets cured. While the second guy is closer to reality, he will cure the patient. But the other guy will be more known than the guy who has cured the patient. You see the difference? So that guy will have a follow-up. The guy is such a scholar, his articles appeared in learned journals of the world. Because they deal with words. You see? So that's the mystification. Eric Berne started transaction analysis. Dr. Eric Berne started transaction analysis that you're familiar with. Most of you are. Who is not familiar with it? It's a very known thing, really. So he started as a revolt against Freud because he thought Freud mystified, so he's going to demystify it. And then his followers mystified it again. So he gave a different vocabulary, right? So the point is this continues. So people become, mystified, because you made a face when I say mystified. It was not clear to you. Is it clear to you now? I read your face. So that's why I gave this explanation. Fair enough? I'm with you. All right. So now, so the difference is, now if you're looking at topic 2, an individual joins any group to get something positive out of the group. Now this means all the groups that you go to, in a therapy group, or if you join a club, for example, Rotary, Lions, that's a group. His actions then are interrelated with the other members of the group. The reaction of the group members to an individual joining the group generally establishes his role in the group. If there is a group leader, the members may compete for the leader's attention. There might be a competition, if you've seen groups working. Strong feelings are associated with communication and sharing processes in a group. The action of a member while within a group is influenced by the members as well as by the group dynamics. Now, this is very important. The action may not be characteristic of the member when outside the group as an individual. History has one of the most horrifying examples of this. You know which example is that? Hitler. Right, precisely. Hitler. Whole German nation, supposed to be very intelligent people, right? Because German is supposed to be one of the most philosophical languages according to philosophers, And here are these people. Hitler spoke broken, ungrammatical German, persuaded them to kill 6 million Jews. Because that was a group action. That was a mass action. So the psychology of the mass, as far as the communication processes are concerned, is very different than that of an individual. If you ask any one of those Germans individually, would you like to kill a Jew? He may be saying no. Or what kind of horrible thought are you saying? What are you saying? But as a group, they committed this massacre. Because one thing happens in a group, the responsibility is shared by nobody. It's something I didn't do it. They did it. Whoever they is. Like Ahmedabad, you are familiar with lately. For the last few years, supposed to be the land of Gandhi. So now, because there is a group violence, because then there is nobody shares the responsibility. It's always like that. So the psychology of the group. So when you communicate with a group, it is very different than talking to an individual. All right. And the bigger the number, easier it is to talk to. The larger the group, easier it is to persuade the people. Because maybe the IQ is reduced to the lowest denominator in a group, Okay, the action may not be characteristic of the member when outside the group as an individual. An awareness, a characteristic of the group or the group mind is more than the sum of the individual's consciousness. Now, masses are so hungry for an ideology as they are for their daily meals, and that's what Hitler gave them. We're going to be the pure race. That's an ideology he gave. Aram haram hai is an ideology. That's why politicians always give you slogans. Does it make sense? Garibi hata. What does it do? It gives you a peg to hang your hat on. So this is a thing for which people are persuaded because it doesn't require any thinking. So it becomes an ideology, and people love an ideology. Some sort of an ideology that they can work for. So masses are as hungry for an ideology as they are for the daily meals. They even wish to sacrifice themselves for religious, social, political cause and value, which according to their perception is correct. You make sense? We have that, right now very prominent. The psychological reality is that majority of the people want to be led. As much as we speak about individualism and the rest of it, this happens to be the psychological fact. That psychological reality is the majority of the people want to be led and will follow a leader who wins the respect and trust. Even in recent history, like Hitler was, if you think is too long back, then in recent history, James Jones in the American guy who did it, 914 odd people committed mass suicide in Guyana. You remember, you're familiar with that? Huh? They drank poison, they shared it on one leader's telling. Think about it. Because in cases like this, what the leaders do, they create paranoia. Paranoia, you know what paranoia is? Okay. What is it, Sham? It's an irrational fear of something. It's basically a psychological problem. So it's, if two people are whispering, you feel that they're talking about you. That's paranoia. Let me illustrate by this. There was this lady who went to a horse race, race course. And she suddenly realized her bra strip was loose. She turns to the lady on the right and she said, "Do you have a safety pin, please?" And the lady says, "No." She turns to the lady on the left and says, "Do you have a safety pin, please?" The other woman says, "No." Just at that time on the public address system, they announced, "They're off!" And she fainted. That's paranoia. All right? I'll tell you what that means someday. All right? So the point is, paranoia is that irrational fear. And all leaders, when they want masses to commit a crime, they will create this paranoia. So the paranoia, the division is us against them. It's always that simple. White and black. You get it? It's us against them. That is what causes it. So the information that is fed to the group is always for us and against them. And that is the technique of propaganda device. But that's how they do propaganda for any such thing. Us against them. So they're divided, that we are here and those people are persecuting us. Very simple. So be aware of this. The last thing, as Kennedy points out, a speaker can insult and threaten an assemblage of people in the most terrible way, and if they still love him, even doing so, he succeeds in forming them into a crowd. If you don't believe that this is possible, go to any EST seminar. Huh? Is that right? How many have been there? Nobody's been to EST? Is that right, Dhruv? Did they insult them? They form them in a crowd and they abuse them like anything. The people love it. I'm talking about educated people. And they even talk about it, that was so good. It's because that is the mass psychology. That's the group psychology. Once you got people in a group, they are like putty in your hand. You can make any shape out of them that you want. And any leader knows this secret, which is an open secret. So if you want to be a leader, here it is. Mystify people, give them an ideology, and they will follow it. All right. That brings us to topic 3. Communication as an occurring art. I mentioned why I call it occurring art, Arun. Here are some specific points. Because no matter what decision a communicator makes while communicating, later the communicator will find that some other set of decisions would have been better. We all feel that I should have said it differently. I could have said it that way or the other way. This is always the case. But because communication is a dynamic process, like Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, once put it, you cannot wash your feet in the same water twice. I repeat, you cannot wash your feet in the same water twice, because the moment you washed it once, something has happened to the water. It does not remain the same water. You understand? And the same happens in communication. Once you said something, you cannot take it back. Particularly in spoken word, which we'll speak about later. In written word, you have time to erase it or something like that. Like in Western music, it is composed. Like Mozart writes or Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, then he sits down and writes, C major and this minor and so on. Then he says, oh, this is not good. So he crosses it out and recomposes, writes it. Then it comes out the final version. But when Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahab or Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, Ustad Vilayat Khan Sahab ji come and play, They can say, oh, I forgot, that tan is not good, let me redo it. That's there. It's there, that's it. It's in the here and now. Improvised. Make sense? It is not composed in the Western sense of the word. In the same way, spoken word is something like that, and therefore, it is once it's said, it's registered. All right. So, communication is a dynamic process. Through this process, we convey our thought or feeling to someone else. Fair enough? When you convey this thought or feeling to someone else, how it is received by that person depends on a set of events, stimuli that person is exposed to at that moment in time. So there is a here and nowness about communication. How you say what you say also plays an important role in communication. And that means the voice, for example, is one of the parts, how you say it. I can say I feel very confident, sir. Do I sound confident to you? When I say it like, if I stand like this, I say, ladies and gentlemen, I feel very confident about doing this. Now, do I look or sound confident to you? So the words in themselves, for the semantic meaning, has something more. They have to have something more to make the meaning worthwhile. So how you say what you say is also very, very important. Next, if you are speaking to an audience, your pronunciation, intonation, volume and quality of your voice, and if you are visible to the audience, your gestures become not only a part of the process, but of the part of the message itself. For example, if I come here and say, ladies, suit and a tie, suit and a tie, and I hold the lapel of my jacket, I say, ladies and gentlemen, in my humble opinion, communication means, and if I look like this, holding this coat, what do you feel? What is the message that got through to you? Egoist, right? I'm saying, what words am I saying? Humble. Do I sound any humble to you? So the message that is conveyed to you is a non-verbal one. Does it make sense? The message that is conveyed, which you accepted. So gestures became message itself, which nullified what my words said. And when you say something, your body is also doing similar things. And if you're not aware of it, you might be saying something and your body might be saying something completely different. More on that a little later. All right. So, as Vilo said, there is always someone who knows better than you what you meant by your message. You say my humble opinion, but someone in the audience will say he's humble. No, he's not. If you are communicating through writing, your style, vocabulary, sentence structure, and how you space the ideas decide the fate of your message. I'll tell you an interesting example. Have you heard of Nabokov? No. Good, good. I just check it out. Anybody has heard of Nabokov? Checking this out helps me how much I can lie and how much I cannot. So, he wrote a book which became very controversial at the time, Lolita. You heard of that book? Yeah. It was made into a movie with Peter Sellers and James Mason. Okay, the story is about this James Mason and this hero. His name is different in Lolita. In the movie, James Mason was the guy. So he is fond of young girls, nymphets as he calls them. So he falls in love with this, or falls in love with what if you call it that, with this 13-year-old girl. So her name is Lolita. But he marries her mother for that end, who is a divorcee. So then his job is to get rid of the mother. That is basically the thing. So then he can have the daughter. His goal was very clear. The mother is just a sidetrack. So when that happens again, then he does all this and he's brought into the court where he's describing, how he feels about women and so forth. There's a case. So in the book, novel, Lolita, Vladimir Nabokov, a Russian, American novelist, one of the most beautiful writers, if you ever read it. So this guy, I'm reading this book, Lolita, for example, and in the book, he has given certain vocabulary, certain words, certain character to the mother of this girl, Lolita. American middle class sort of type of a lady, who's not much up here and that sort of a thing. So he's talking to the judge and he says, Your Lordship, then she wrote, when she threw this letter into the vortex of the toilet, Now the vocabulary that he has given to this woman, the word vortex doesn't fit in. So as I'm reading this, I said, Nabokov, goofed here, he committed an error. Like these words like vortex would not fit with the character like, this mother, old lady. Next line, now he outguessed me, is what I'm saying. Nabokov outguessed the reader. So the next line by this hero in this novel, he says, Your Lordship, the word vortex is mine because I forgot what she had written. Because he's the European intellectual with fantastic vocabulary, and suddenly, so he's outguessing. What I'm saying, his awareness is what I want you to be aware of. Shakespeare, in Tempest, there is a long speech by one of the characters which is addressed to a young guy. Now the play is going on about midnight in 16th century. Shakespeare knew that when this hero guy is giving this long monologue to this character, this young boy, the boy will fall asleep. He knew this, and if a boy falls asleep, the audience will laugh. Hey, the guy, the actor fell asleep. So it'd be a joke instead of a play. Knowing this, what he has done, the awareness, that the communication master that I call him, in this long speech of this character, he has inserted every few sentences. Are you listening to me? It's a part of the speech. So literally the actor who is giving this monologue can walk up to this actor who might be falling asleep and say, hey, you listening to me, you're awake? The audience thinks that's a part of the play. You see? You see what I mean by, that is what I mean by awareness. That's what I want you to have, or some insight into that and some feel of it before you leave tomorrow. Because as I told you, your grammar is very good, your vocabulary is good enough, because most people communicate with only about 500 words in their lifetime. So you don't have to worry much about words. So you got enough. The point is, these are the things that will help you in becoming a better communicator. This feel for things. This awareness, ehsas in Urdu. That's what you need. All right. So, if you are communicating, so I will call communication as an occurring art. Now here is your complete answer. Get it, Arun? Why I call it? The art that is happening here and now, the here and now for an individual in addition to what is conveying, both internal events such as feelings and thoughts plus the external events. To make it even more complicated, let me add that the here and now is also in a state of flow. It too is changing. I tell you all this so you understand the complexity of the process of communication. And that the part of the mastering the art of communication is the mastering the art of being aware. Being aware of where you stand in terms of here and now and where your audience is in terms of here and now. And here you will only make an educated guess because you cannot outguess people. You cannot read their minds. So what you can do, go by your feelings and you sort of hone in your intuitive ability. What do I mean by honing in? Say a doctor, a general practitioner, when the first time he has his patient, he put his signs outside, Dr. so-and-so, MD or MBBS or whatever. First patient walks in, let me guarantee you this much. The doctor is more nervous than the patient. If the patient knew he is the first patient, he will never go there. Is that true or not? Because he sees the sign, he says, oh, doctor, he must be good, blah, blah, he's got a degree, lots of people must be coming. He walks in with all kinds. Doctor knows that this guy is the first one. And he's damn nervous. He goes through every rule in the book that he studied in the medical college. Asks every question before he does the diagnosis and goes through very carefully. 10 years down memory lane or time, suddenly the doctor has become an expert now. Moment the patient walks in, he knows what the diagnosis is. He will let him sit down and mumble a few things, but he has got the medication already written out. You see? He will call it clinical acumen, because intuition is not a scientific term. Basically, all it is that he has cultivated and educated his intuitive ability, which all of us are capable of having, or doing. You see? Because when you listen to somebody for 2 minutes, you recognize, as Deepak put it, it was a revelation. As Padmanabh said, in 2 minutes, if I listen to somebody like that, I could make a very, very valid, observation about the person. Which means, if we do just that, you see? So that is how we tune in ourselves to what other people are saying, and how we are heard and how we hear them. Once I was invited to give a lecture at a conference on psychic phenomena or parapsychological phenomena. Parapsychology is a sort of a label wherein everything that doesn't fit into psychology, they put in parapsychology. So like clairvoyance means thinking about, knowing about future, or clairaudience, hearing about future, precognition, knowing something that is to happen beforehand. All these sort of, or telepathy, transferring of all these topics, they are under parapsychological label. So I was invited, sixth sense and so on. So when I went there, I gave a 1 hour talk, lecture on psychic phenomena and parapsychology. At the end of which, one person from the audience got up and he says, "Professor, tell me this. What do you think of sixth sense?" And I told them this, and I'll tell you the same thing. I said, most people do not use their 5 senses efficiently to worry about the sixth one. And I say, I guarantee each and every one of you, the moment you hone in your 5 senses and use them efficiently, others will think you got a sixth sense. Believe me. Start using your ears. What the Upanishad calls it, listening with your ear's ear. Of all places, Upanishad talks about it in our philosophy. Listening through the ear's ear. Not this thing, something we hear. Use your observation power. Listen well. Use your voice effectively. Once you start using your 5 senses effectively, people will, believe me, think that you got something extra. Because we are generally so preoccupied and operating at the base of the triangle, so a lot of our energy is wasted into other things. You see? Because you got fantastic ability to do a whole lot of things if you're grounded. Like if you read Mahabharata, there were, after the Kauravas and Pandavas were taught archery. Is that correct? Then there was an examination. Now I'm going to correct an error that Vyas Muni committed in writing the Mahabharata. What happened, the examination was that the Pandavas and the Kauravas were supposed to one by one shoot the eye of a bird which was sitting on a tree. Is that correct? You familiar with that story? Huh? So what happened, Duryodhan comes and Dronacharya, the guru, asks, he said, "What do you see, Duryodhan?" So Duryodhan said, "I see the tree and I see the branches of the tree and I see the leaves and then I see the bird." So Dronacharya did not give him an arrow. He said, "Forget it, next." Because he failed. Giving an arrow to him will be wasted. So one by one, Bhimsen comes and says, "What do you see?" He says, "I see the fruits on the tree, and I see the river and the branches and the roads and so on." Next, didn't give him an arrow. Arjuna came. He said, "What do you see?" He said, "I see the eye of the bird." So Dronacharya said, "Here is an arrow, shoot." Now that's where Vyasji committed an error. He didn't have to give an arrow to. That's also a waste of an arrow. Because his arrow couldn't go anywhere else. Why give it to him? He passed the exam. You see the point? Just the fact that he saw the eye, examination is passed. The rest is a waste of an arrow. This is the error in the Mahabharata. I corrected. So I want you to be aware of this. That once you have all your energy invested into what you are doing, there is nothing else but for you to become successful at it. If you are grounded while listening to people, if you are grounded while talking to people, if your mind is not preoccupied with 1,000 things, and if your energy is not invested in a whole lot of other things, you will be a good communicator, as you are aware of it is. All right? Now, to continue.
One point.
Yeah.
Now, when you say awareness, you are aware of everything.
Right.
Right? So,
Yeah.
why do you think that Arjuna was given an arrow, and he said that he was only aware of the eye. He should have been aware of the whole thing.
No, his mind, his energy, at that time his job was to just do that. So it's all his energy was invested just in the shooting of the arrow. Which means he was grounded is what I'm saying.
Right. But he was aware.
Yeah, right. Of that eye also. That's all he was aware of, and therefore he could succeed. So what I'm saying is when you're communicating, at that time if you're worrying about your patient somewhere in your clinic while you're talking to your wife, that communication would suffer. Because it is not focused enough. Part of your energy is invested into thinking about that patient. And your wife will say, you're not listening to me, I've said it 3 times. Right? Because you were thinking about the patient while she's talking about something else. But if your attention was like Arjuna, that eye of the bird, then you will be aware of what she's saying and not the other thing.
But then one should be aware of the surroundings.
Aware of surrounding and what is happening, at the same time be focused on what's going on. So the awareness not as an interference, but as a focusing. So the patient walks in, and you see the patient, you are aware of how he's walking, how his voice is, where he's stuttering, where he has some problem about saying certain words, which words have more energy than the others. That's your awareness about what is going on. And this keeps on moving, this keeps on shifting, which we'll do an exercise in a minute. All right. Now, to make it even okay, path of mastering the art of communication, mastering the art of being aware of where you stand in terms of here and now and where your audience is in terms of here and now. Because I am aware of all this, it never surprises me when people talking the same language do not understand one another, and it always surprises me when they do. Because there's always a problem, all kinds of factors come into play. Now, to bring something else to your awareness, what we're going to do now is a little exercise. I want you to find 3 strangers. Again, some people you already know a little better now, right? Find 2 strangers if you can't find 3 today, now at this time in class. Find 2 strangers, walk up to them, don't say anything, just with your eyes, look at them and try to convey some feeling to that person just by the way you look at him. Are you with me? And then once you think you have conveyed it, ask that person, what did my eye contact convey to you? And see whether it tallies with what you want to convey. One thing, all right? So instead of 2 persons, do it just with 1 person, all right? Forget 2 persons. Do it with 1 person, this eye contact. With another person, I want you to do something else. Find some stranger and just say hello to him. And all he says, once you say hello, is goodbye. Then you say hello again differently. He says goodbye in response to what you're saying. Just keep changing your intonation, the feeling in your hello, every time you do it. And do it minimum of 10 different ways. And then share with the person how he felt about what hellos and how you felt about what goodbyes. Are you with me? Both exercises very clear? Okay, we can use both the rooms. You don't have to sit down and do it. Nobody sits. We keep on moving and stand by or stand here or there. Take up all the room you want. Okay, we can use both the rooms. You don't have to sit down and do it. Nobody sits. We keep on moving and stand by or stand here or there. Take up all the room you want.
Rooshiji, I would like to ask you one question. In the previous experiment that you conducted when we were 3 of us,
right?
Groups of 3. Are these common results, or are they, do you find other results in them?
No, these are common results.
Common results.
Yes.
It's always people listen carefully and
that's
come
right.
out with
very valid observation. Yeah.
It's a common.
That is correct.
So
it's a common. That's why I instantly asked, were you surprised? Because I know people are...
Then after one finds that everybody knows about it, then it's surprising.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's reveling. It's a surprise.
Yes.
It's a different one. This is surprising that by and large people
realize, you see. And what is the best part about it, no matter what you said, See, because you were given complete freedom what you will say in those 2 minutes.
But yes, but Shyam's observation was very...
Correct. People say only things we say. Right.
I mean, how you want to...
I agree. Right. Nonetheless, what they said, they also made some comments which were not very positive, I'm sure.
Right? Fine that people are... I mean, I don't know. But okay. People, were there negative attitudes? I mean, I would like...
Or did anybody make some comments, adjectives where they said something which was not positive?
Yes, Mr. Deepak said he's a fighter. But that I said, and not you. But that's a personal agreed. Then I wouldn't say, okay, if I'm a fighter, that's okay. Just keep quiet about it now. Say that I'm a damn good guy. That was the best revelation he gave us. Said, look, man, I'm a fighter. But that's self, but that is not a negative attitude.
No, that's right. Well, you look at it positive.
Yeah, but this is a positive attitude.
That's right. I understand. Yeah. Okay, let's move. Remember, one person eye contact, one person hello and goodbye. Nobody sits. Find a stranger. Good. Here.
Hello. Goodbye. Hello. Goodbye. Hello. Goodbye. Hi. Goodbye. Hello. Goodbye.
Okay. Now, say what did you feel about each hello? I mean, each goodbye?
I think he was responsive to my way of talking. In other words, when I said hello slowly, he responded slowly. When I said firmly, he responded firmly. So it was quite linked to the receiver's end as well as giver's end.
Okay. Was it anything different about the last one?
No, I didn't find much difference.
I thought he was put off with the last one. Is that true about you?
Yeah.
Just wanted to be aware of it.
Yeah, but why?
I can give you a guess on that also.
Okay.
Maybe you held his hand too jerkily. Is that true?
That's not a reason actually. I just wanted to say in a different tone, so I use a different tone.
But you didn't notice that it was not that happy type. Right. You see?
That's true.
That's what I mean by listening to it. How about his hellos?
Yeah, his hellos, I think you were quite responsive, and he said it in each in a different tone, and that was quite good.
How did you feel about his handshakes?
They were quite nice. Yeah.
Alright. So you see the point? Yeah. Right. So pay attention to what it says. I observed as an onlooker that something was not right about the last one. Okay, find somebody else. Welcome back. To get grounded one more time. After lunch in India is even harder. It's a cultural trait, Any thoughts, questions came to your mind? Yeah.
The object of saying hello and goodbye.
Object of saying hello and goodbye. What do you think?
I couldn't guess.
You couldn't guess. Anybody did guess?
Show the response.
What is it, Shah?
Shows you the different ways that the same word can be used over and over again.
Say it a little louder, please.
Shows you the different ways one word can be said. In anger or in happiness and sadness or whatever. Whatever feelings can be shown in just the way you say one word.
Correct. It's a symbol more or less for every communication transaction that you go through. I just reduced it to 2 words. Essentially. Okay. Shall we hear some?
Increasing the expressiveness.
Alright. What else? Yeah.
You came to know somebody. I think that was the best part of it. Because at least you got a word to start with.
You got a word to start with, right? That's always a problem. That's why Eric Berne, the man who started transactional analysis, the psychiatrist who was trained in Montreal, Canada and settled in California, his best-selling book that came out after his death is called What Do You Say After You Say Hello? Look at even the title. People have this problem. That is precisely the problem of communication. Now what do I do next? Once I said hello, what then? Is a problem people face. That's why you have a whole lot of pleasantries. which is a part of the communication, which has no other purpose but to start the communication. Hello, how are you? Fine, thank you very much. These are all niceties. Nobody means what they're saying. It's just the exchanges of words. Just as nobody even pays attention to what is being said. You see?
Sometimes if you tell them you're not fine, they get a big shock.
Yeah. Or it doesn't already snow. That's very good. They register because they are hearing yes, fine. Strange.
Sir, I found one interesting thing. I did not do the experiment myself. I observed another gentleman who was kind to allow me to observe him. I found that the response is very similar to what you give. The man said hello nicely, the other man says bye-bye very nicely. And he says hello with a threatening way, he says his bye also in an equally threatening way. So I found the tally between what you give and what you...
Right, that tells you something about communication. Right? Whatever you give, you will receive. Like one humorist in America defined life as like a sewage pond. He said, what you put into it, what you get out of it depends on what you put into it. So in the same way that, okay, you get your answer? The purpose, basically another thing, that it gives you some idea about how you can use your voice creatively. Because as I've been saying since morning, the most neglected part of communication is the voice through which you communicate. The instrument. Most people do not use their natural voice. Majority of them don't. They use what is known as a familiar voice. And if you change using it, you didn't sound like that yesterday, that would be the kind of response you would get. Because people are used to your familiar voices, not your natural voice. The one which is a product of lots of inhibitions and pressures. We'll talk more on that. We'll do some exercise which will bring out, you will know what the apparatus involved in producing voice. Alright. Any other comments about hello and goodbye? Yes, Amit.
I think it was non-verbal communication accompanied by verbal communication.
Right.
That's an important.
That's always the case. That is correct. Because even if you don't move a single part of your body, that stiffness also is a non-verbal gesture. You see? It is always there. It's, as I say, it's an inseparable part of the communication. Not only that, it might be the message itself, as I gave you the example in my humble opinion. Remember that? With the gestures? Okay. That brings us to topic 4. Different levels of communication. Now before we go into different levels of communication, I want you to go to the title page of this manual. It's after the introduction is over. It's a quotation by Dr. Carl Gustav Jung. Start from the beginning. Forget the first 2 pages. Come to the 3rd page from the beginning. On the 3rd page, there is a poem at the bottom. Are you looking at it?
Yeah.
Huh? Because what makes your communication stick is precisely this. If you look at what Jung had to say, because in our civilized life we have stripped so many ideas of their emotional energy, we do not really respond to them anymore. We use such ideas in our speech and we show a conventional reaction when others use them, but they do not make a very deep impression on us. Something more is needed to bring certain things home to us effectively enough to make us change our attitude and behavior. See, as I told you, boss and an employee, the reaction, that particular dialogue has been repeated so many times, it does not produce any effect on either party. On management and labor is always that system and that model that continues because they are governed by 2 sets of different premises. Laborers will think that the management is out there to exploit us, and the management think that they want more money. labor feel that the management is going to exploit them. Management thinks that those people want more money. They operate on these premises. As long as they don't change the premise, there will never be a settlement. Which is what they have not recognized, that they got to change this particular premise. At one time I was called in Bangalore by a company just to do this, and I said, what is the problem? He said, they want more money. I said, did you check? What do you mean check? They always want more money. Just like that, So I went, the factory was somewhere in the remote part of Karnataka where there was no doctor. So I talked to the whole lot of people and the family members and the union people. He said, we have a problem with the medical facilities. We cannot afford to go to the city for treatment. Sometimes somebody falls asleep or sick in the house. I said, if we get you a doctor, will it be all right? They said, fine. So all it cost them was about 60,000 rupees per year, as opposed to 6 lakhs with their calculator in terms of wages. Nobody checks. So it depends on what the premises. And there is a very interesting case in this point in America, in one of those 5-star hotels. Customers complained that all the lifts, elevators in this hotel were slow. So the management had a big problem with it. When the clients complain, all the lifts are slow. So they called the guy who does all this sort of work, repair job or fixing the lift, and they gave an estimate. We'll have to put electronic gears and this and that and update the the mechanism and whatever. Some $2 million cost for all the lifts in this 5-star hotel. While all this was happening, the negotiations were on. There was one, black lady, Negro lady who had been a maid servant in this hotel for the last 35 years, and she was about 60 years old, had been in the business, for a long time, and she asked one of the managers, she said, what's the matter? All these some meetings are going on, some problem? So the guy told him. He said, can I talk to the committee people? So she was respected, had been with the hotel for a long time. She said, sure. They took her there. And she asked them what was the thing. They told her this was the problem. She said, sir, I've been in business of this hotel for so many years. I worked in 3 other hotels besides yours. And any hotel that I was, there were no lifts that were faster than yours. So they never had any complaint. So the management people said, well, if they didn't have a faster elevators, then why didn't they have complaint? We got it. She says, because they all had mirrors inside the lift and outside in the lobby where they waited for the lift. That's all there was to it. So they were so busy looking at themselves they forgot the time. They installed mirrors. The cost was some $75,000. That's all. You see, you go, as I said, as I've been saying since mornings in the Rooshi principle, your course of action is decided by the premise, what attributes you give to the situation. Does it make sense? Change those attributes and the solution will provide itself. You see? You are saying things because I cannot say it this way because that's how people say it. As one of the ladies told me in the, outside, during lunchtime they wanted this sugar cubes. And the tongs were too stiff, and she felt like picking them up with the fingers. But again, that dictation in the head, that will be bad manners. You see? So you're dictated by it, so you don't do things differently. So you suffer through for nothing because of these old tapes that are playing, as it were, to use a transactional metaphor, those parental tapes. That's a dirty thing to do, unladylike, bad manners, in a 5-star hotel. You can do it in a dhaba, but not in a 5-star hotel. You see? So these are the things by which our communication patterns are regularized. And therefore, we have a problem because everybody talks the same way, so nothing registers. So that's why you is pointing out that emotional energy is taken away. And that's why the beautiful poem, if you look at it, it's a very interesting poem written in 16th century, which is a delight in disorder. A sweet disorder in the dress, kindleth in clothes a wantonness. A lawn about the shoulders thrown into a fine distraction, an erring lace which here and there enthralls the crimson stomacher, a cuff neglectful and thereby ribands to flow confusedly, a winning wave, deserving note in tempestuous petticoat, a careless shoestring in whose tie I see a wild civility do more bewitch me than when art is too precise in every part. Something different out of the ordinary. It attracts people's attention. Like Salvador Dali with his surrealistic painting suddenly put a painting of clocks, so he melted them, melted clocks, what they look like. Suddenly it draws people's attention. Melted clocks, they all took weird shapes when he imagined them to be melted. The painter became a master of surrealistic painting. Because it was out of what his tradition had demanded so far. Please proceed to CD number 3.